There has been basically no downtime since ESL Pro League Season 22. The CS Championships are going on right now, so are the Thunderpick World Championships. Out of the two of those, I'm choosing to cover the CAC as it just has the more interesting field of teams. Which brings us to here, the group stage recap, where we go over what happened in the group stage and set the stage for the playoffs that are starting tonight, because Chinese time zones absolutely fucking suck. So you guys should appreciate the heroic sacrifice that I make to bring you this kind of content. Liquid made it through, they're looking great with Bubblesj. Faze absolutely bombed the fuck out. Everything and more coming your way after you guys take a second and leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Help me hit 10k subs by the end of the year. Also, follow me on twitch.tv/LionHeartZ2. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and thank today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by SkinsMonkey, a CS2 trading website. You put in the skins that you want to trade, you select what you want, you use my code LionHeartZ for up to $5 off, or click the top link in the description, and boom, new drip.
Nice.
You can also use my code for a 35% deposit bonus if you want to buy with real money. And they have a free section with cool giveaways. So check the top link in the description, use my code to buy 15 Dragon Lores to let them know I sent you their way, and thank you to SkinsMonkey for sponsoring this video. With that, we'll lead at the top with the most exciting team in the field in my humble opinion, and that is Team Liquid. I would consider this the formal debut of Bubblesj, because the Birch Cup was really just an event they went to meet the obligations for the major. It was so soon after the move was made that we didn't have enough to look at to really judge what the Shuhi, Bubblesj, Nerds era is going to look like. So what did that turn out like at CAC? Well, they went through the double elimination bracket very strongly. They only dropped one map at the very end of Legacy, and they made their berth in the semifinals, skipping that day one quarterfinal matchup, which means they now have a statistical very high chance of at least making it to their first grand finals in God knows how long. So this may come as a surprise to you when I say this, that's pretty good. In terms of who they played, they opened up on day one by beating Gamer Legion in a best of 1, then MIBR in a best of 3. That best of 3 win secured playoffs, but there was still one more match against Legacy in the upper group final that would decide who goes to the semis and who goes to the quarters, where they beat Legacy 2-1. So an immediate caveat, obviously not the highest caliber of competition, but teams like MIBR, or Legacy especially, could really try to take an upset if you really come in quiet in a series. In terms of personal performances, Liquid finished as the highest rated team overall with a 1.12 team rating. Every single player was above a 1.0 rating, and both Bubblesj and Naf shone with 1.21s each. And probably the most interesting to point out is that Bubblesj actually did significantly better on the CT side. His CT sides, especially in the Faze era, were quite a lot worse than his T sides, where he was one of the best T-side riflers in the world. On the CT side, for this stage of the event, he ends with a 1.32 rating and a much more tame 1.14 on the T side. Probably the biggest question mark, especially in a high-stakes game for me, is going to be Nerds. He has a lot more responsibilities in this team now that Twist is gone, as he essentially has to fall back into those roles that are left over from his departure. Bubblesj is stepping up, he's going to be the primary opener and the more aggressive player. Nerds has to be essentially playing those star roles, those rotator spots, that man who plays the cleanup and the round finisher. He needs to be, no joke, the second star player in this team behind Bubblesj. And so far, he's met that sometimes, but not always, and that inconsistency is going to burn Liquid in a high-stakes game, especially when you throw in the other added variance that is Ultimate as a player. Anyways, they beat Gamer Legion in a best of 1 on Inferno 13-9. Not much else to be said here. Nerds, even though I just made that whole diatribe beforehand, did lead the way here with a 23 kill, 14 death, 1.65 performance. Overall, they had just superior firepower to Gamer Legion. Their following match against MIBR could have been a little bit tricky, as Klim has been tearing apart the tier 2 in Brazil since he's gotten to MIBR on loan. Not something we've been able to cover on the channel, as he's not playing any tournaments I really cover, but he's been going absolutely sicko mode over there. So could he jump out and just smoke Team Liquid if Ultimate had a bad game? Yeah, probably. Did he do that in this case? Absolutely not. MIBR got bowled over 13-5 on Mirage, 13-5 on Nuke. Klim bottom fragged for the series, going 16 for 30. Meanwhile, Ultimate went 32-16 over both maps. Unfortunately, this was a classic. Insani is the only player worth anything on MIBR moments, and MIBR just had nothing in the tank to deal with how much better the team play was from Team Liquid. And then in the upper bracket finals, it was against Legacy, as we already said, 3-map series. Legacy jumped out with a quick 13-6 win on Mirage. Lux was absolutely farming, going 20-11 with a 1.89 rating. Meanwhile, Naf was the only Team Liquid player to have a positive scoreline, which, while I am the leader of the Naf is the greatest player to ever exist club, is not necessarily ideal, as you want him to be your third best player. That's alright, Liquid rebounded with a great 13-6 win of their own on Dust 2. Bubblesj, my bald, beautiful goat, leading the charge. And you know, I may have a lot of unresolved feelings about his time not working out on Faze, but it does, you know, it does feel correct seeing him in a Liquid jersey. It really does. Feels like we've come full circle on that one. And then we conclude on Inferno after going all 24 rounds. This one took a lot of grit from Team Liquid. They found themselves down 9-11, no jokes, on the CT side and had to win 4 straight to close out the game. NeRTZ notably struggled here as well as the entire series, and his missing impact could have very well cost Liquid a chance at the semifinal spot. But Naf and Shuhei especially really stepped up to fill that gap and keep them in pace to win this game in the end. Legacy, I thought they looked very good, more on them in just a second, but I don't think it's a big deal for them to lose to Liquid. Liquid are just the better team. I think looking ahead at the playoff bracket with the teams that are left over, I don't want to jump the gun too much, but considering that the strongest team by rank after Liquid is probably 3D Max, there's really no excuse for Liquid to not be making the grand finals, and honestly, they should be winning it from here. There are teams left: 3D Max, Fnatic, Legacy, FUT, Heroic. These are teams that Liquid should beat nearly every single time. So we'll just have to wait and see. Since we just brought up Legacy, let's stay here in this group for a second and talk about them, as they are also making it into the playoffs. They lost to Liquid in that semifinal advancement game, but that's fine because they started off their tournament beating Virtus.pro in a best of 1 and then followed it up with a great best of 3 victory over 3D Max. Legacy are a bit of an interesting team to talk about because no one's ever going to deny the firepower they have. When Lux, Lotto, and Dumao are shooting, they are shooting. But as always, the Achilles heel of a team like this is that they are not very tactically sound and they are prone to firepower going missing. So they are on one hand a very, very real, legit dark horse threat in just about any tournament they enter, but will they fulfill that promise always remains to be seen. They brush aside Virtus.pro 13-2 in their opening game on Mirage. Both Sadson and Lotto would put up ridiculous score lines, 24-4 for Sadson, 17-4 for Lotto, and unfortunately the stunning brilliance of Perfecto as an IGL was not enough to hold them back. Now, 3D Max are certainly no slouches, however what they really don't have is firepower to match what Legacy bring to the table. 3D Max have to win this kind of series based off of their tactical excellence, which is why they lost Dust 2 pretty handily 13-6, but fired back a great win on Nuke 13-8 because their T side was genuinely fantastic, winning on the first half 8-4, and then closing out very soundly on the CT half afterwards. However, the final map, Inferno, is a bit more scrappy, engagement-based kind of map, and the guns fired a little bit straighter for Legacy, allowing them to win that out 13-7. And we just covered what happened against Team Liquid, so we'll skip past that. Looking ahead to the playoffs, Legacy have FUT in their matchup, and FUT are an interesting team, which we'll save more commentary about them for a little bit later on in the video. My best read on a matchup like this is that it's going to be an absolute slugfest. Both teams are going to play very aggressive, very quick, and it'll be up to the players like Lotto and Dumao to really shine to get them to a semifinals appearance. We'll wrap up our Group A coverage by covering 3D Max as well. After falling victim to Legacy in the upper bracket, they had to go down low and survive in a final day's game against Virtus.pro, but they've made it into the playoffs as well. Overall, pretty stock standard appearance from 3D Max. We know exactly what this team is at this point, and frankly, they're fun to watch most of the time. And given that this is an overall weaker field than in most contexts that we get to watch 3D Max, there's not an unreal chance that they make a deep run in the playoffs. Now, compared to other teams, they by far have the hardest route to make a grand finals run here, as they will have to not only beat Fnatic in their opening quarterfinals matchup, but they have a date with Liquid in the semis if they do. But as always when we talk about 3D Max, this is one of the most tactically sound, best run T-sides, frankly, in the world, and Team Liquid and Fnatic, these are nothing if not inconsistent teams. So on the right day and the right moment, I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that 3D Max could make a run and beat both of them and make that happen. We'll just have to wait and see. In terms of how they got there, they started off the CAC with a best of 1 win over the Huns, 13-1. It wasn't even particularly close on Nuke. They followed that up with that close-fought 3-game series against Legacy, where they definitely had a strong look at winning this series, but just fell short with that third man performance on Inferno not holding up under scrutiny. So they had to drop to the lower bracket, where they first matched up against Lin Vision facing elimination, and they took care of work easily in that matchup 2-0 to have a date in the lower bracket final against Virtus.pro, where they also took care of work beating VP in 3 maps and advancing into the playoffs. Now, up front, there is one issue here. I'm currently recording this at 8:30 at night. The playoffs literally start in 2 hours. I'm doing this on stream. Hello, chat. And the team over at Perfect World, who are running the event despite PGL doing the English broadcast, have not posted the demo for this match yet. I literally don't have access to the demo file for this game. and all of my in-game footage has to be recorded through demos because I can't legally use the stream VODs and have sponsors. So I don't have footage for the Verse Pro game. It's just, we're going to talk about the scores, but you're not going to see anything on screen. There's just nothing I can do about that. And I'm really hoping that going forward into the playoffs, they are more diligent about uploading the demos right away, so I can wake up in the morning because these games are going on overnight for me, and I can make you guys the recaps through the weekend. We might have to play it by ear here with the recap coverage. I'll do my best to make it work, but that's sometimes the situations we deal with when it comes to producing these videos. So thank you guys as always for your patience, even if I'm a little bit late sometimes. Anyways, circling back, nothing to really say about the Huns best of one, so we're going to move straight on. And because we just talked about the Legacy game literally 2 minutes ago, we're going to jump straight to the lower bracket. This opening match against LionHeartZ could have been a little bit hairy because it got pushed to overtime on Dust 2, and 3D Max being more of a tactics first, firepower second team, they could be vulnerable on a map like Dust 2, and sometimes LionHeartZ come out and they shoot very hard. You never know when you're going to have a Zacher takeover game, for example. And to be fair, we kind of got that. Both Starry and Zacher were on fire with 24 and 27 kills apiece. It was the rest of LionHeartZ that really fell short, especially in crunch time. I mean, to start the second half on their CT side, LionHeartZ won 7 straight rounds before 3D Max could get one on the board. They were up 11-8, ready to sweep this game out into the second map, but they couldn't win anything else. They allowed 3D Max to flip the script and win 3 straight off the back of a good B push, only barely managing the force match point, stop the bleeding, and get it into that overtime. But from there, 3D Max continued to run with the momentum. They swept the T side of overtime. They held LionHeartZ to just 1 more round win before the game was over. From 7 straight to only winning 2 of the next 10. Meanwhile, for 3D Max, it very much, as always, is a win by committee. There isn't a single outlier player, but there also isn't a demonstrable weak link. Even Monka, who was their worst player, still went 16 and 18 with a positive rating and had some moments of impact with the op. Everyone else pulled their weight. Meanwhile, for LionHeartZ, you have Amelia bottom fracking hard, going 10 for 21 with a disastrous 0.53 rating. Ultimately, those differences in consistency is what made up the ability for 3D Max to get this win. We saw a similar trend continue on to Inferno, where Starry continued to play fantastically, going for 21 and 12 and a 1.31 rating, but instead of having any backup in the form of Zacher, every single player on LionHeartZ let him down this time, with no one else even approaching a positive rating. This was yet another elite, well-paced T-side out of 3D Max, where they were able to dominate 7-5 on the first half, where they could play real lockdown defense on the CT side. They kept the T-side for LionHeartZ constrained, uncomfortable, and on the economic back foot pretty much the entire game. It was only off the back of great clutches and good timings elsewhere that LionHeartZ could put any rounds on the board in the first place. And then for the Verse Pro series, it's very hard for me to go into much detail without visual examples to help you guys, but this was a 3-game set where all 3 games were decidedly one-sided. Overpass, the first map, went Verse Pro's way, 13-9. Verse Pro, they're back to being Overpass merchants. It's the one map Perfecto knows how to call on. We get to Inferno, which is a map that Perfecto is not very good on, and 3D Max flipped the script with their own 13-9 victory, and continue that momentum onto Train, where they dominate their way out with a 13-9 victory there. In fairness, that was a very prototypical Train game where it was a 10-2 CT side from 3D Max, where Verse Pro did a decent job of making that comeback happen on the second half, winning 7 rounds of their own, but couldn't pull off the miracle into overtime. Not to overly repeat myself, but I am very excited for the Fnatic 3D Max matchup in the quarterfinals, as I think both those teams are very well matched up into each other. I think either team can really win that, but I'm leaning towards 3D Max to be the favorites in that series. I'd like to see them make the semifinals and play against Liquid, and I expect them to do it in 3 games versus Fnatic tonight. Jumping down to Group B, we're going to speed things up a little bit because honestly all of these teams are just less interesting to me than what we saw in Group A. Our first team making it out was Heroic, who earned themselves a bid all the way into the semi-finals despite playing this event with a stand-in. No permanent opper. It's Hades, the best opper to ever play in G2 ever, don't question this, has made his way over to Heroic to save them too, and he's played fucking fantastically. He's clearly the best Polish Counter-Strike player to ever exist, so says Twitter. But in all seriousness, he propelled Heroic to this lofty finish by being the best player so far in the tournament, ending his run with a 1.35 rating on their way into the playoffs. Now, the games were by no means free, as Heroic started off their event with a 16-12 win over Bait in a best-of-1 on Dust 2. Hades out the gate, looking very strong, top fragging alongside Youngster. But after finding themselves in a 10-5 lead, it was Bait who finally hit their stride in the second half side on the CT, where they would win 7 rounds straight before Heroic could right the ship in time to force OT. In OT, they would go flat out perfect, closing out the game in dominant fashion and taking that round 1 victory. They then followed up with a 2-0 victory over FUT, 13-6 on, you know, we're leaving it in, 13-6 on Ancient, 13-8 on Overpass. Those phase beating bastards in FUT were unable to keep up. But for those of you who don't know, are the ex-Na'Vi Junior Core minus Makaze moved over to FUT, where they're playing alongside the one remaining player from that roster in LionHeartZ. Sure, I'm pronouncing that wrong, but frankly, I don't care. And Na'Vi Junior guys, they're all actually pretty legit. Krabeni is someone who should be on everybody's radar as a player who could break out into Tier 1 very soon, and Na'Vi Junior were doing so good that they forced themselves to be sold because of how much VRS they were accruing, so they're more than a legit roster in that regard, but Heroic cruised past them with Hades once again looking damn good in the process. He was by far the best player in the series, ending across both maps with a 34-18 scoreline and a 1.48 rating. And that brought us to the upper bracket finals against Fnatic to decide who would go to the semis and who would go to the quarters. And of course, Fnatic, our current enemy number 1 in the camp of LionHeartZ, because they did Cypher dirty. He should be the one playing here. Crims, Crims is one of my favorite players. I can't be mad at him long term, but like Fnatic slime Cypher. Obviously, we all know this. If you watched the video on my channel the other day, you would be up to date. I'm gonna burp apparently, but Fnatic, everyone's praying on their downfall at CAC. So them losing to Heroic, especially after such a intense final map of Mirage, felt good. We started off this series with a 13-3 stomp on Inferno in favor of Heroic. We then bounced back with Fnatic handing an ass whooping to Heroic their way, 13-2 on Dust 2. BlameF looking so good while he does it, because BlameF will always be entertaining to me no matter how much I want to be against Fnatic at this current period. And then Mirage. Oh god, the Mirage. It went nearly 4 overtimes before Heroic could get the victory out, 22-18. Hades led the way on the final map, getting Heroic into the semifinal berth, but it's also important to shout out Nilo, who has had a much stronger event, and frankly is starting to look like the prospect we all thought he would be before he disappeared for a year when he was first signed to Heroic. And if Nilo can continue this momentum into the playoffs, really all bets are off. When you're playing with a stand-in, there's no pressure, there's no expectations or results, so Heroic could be anything. They could bow out quietly, or they could storm their way into a grand finals appearance. They have a great opportunity to do so because they only have to win one game to make that happen, and they're on the weaker side of the bracket. All in all, as long as Hades keeps up his performance, things are looking up for Heroic, and that's not something we've been able to say very often this year. And then to wrap things up, our last two teams making it through into the playoffs were Fnatic and FUT. Fnatic, I really don't have much to say. I'm not very happy watching this team right now, as you probably know if you watched my video earlier this week about Cypher, but they played good here. I can't really criticize the results in the server if I disagree with what the management is doing outside of it. To make it to the playoffs, Fnatic beat Pain in a best of 1 13-8. They followed it up with a very close fought best of 3 series against Tai Lu, where they had to win in overtime on Train 16-14, then close out a close game on Inferno 13-10. Overall, I think Crims has actually played okay. My criticism of him as a player aside, he's not been a net negative. Jambo has had moments of going monstrous. In the Tai Lu series, he was out of this world, especially on Train, where he dropped 29 kills, 18 deaths, and 1.7 rating. And BlameF is BlameF. He is the Rock of Gibraltar. It pisses me off that people think he's not good or still hold on to Reddit narratives from 2019. BlameF, I said this on Twitter earlier today, you could put BlameF onto any English-speaking roster other than Vitality, and they would get better. I firmly believe that. And yeah, as we discussed earlier, they lost the semi-final advancement game against Heroic, but that was an extremely close series. Fnatic easily could have had it go their way if 1 or 2 rounds had flipped to the other side. I'm not that worried about it. I am, unfortunately, much to my chagrin as a BlameF fan, praying on their downfall in the playoffs, because I think they should lose the 3D Max, if nothing else than for the sake of the karma. And then we had FUT, otherwise known as the Faze Killers, as they beat Faze twice in this event. FUT are an interesting look. There are definitely players on this team that I think will be of interest to Tier 1 rosters in the near future. Krabeni probably first and foremost amongst those. I think Krabeni is a very interesting talent. He seems to be on a similar trajectory to the ZTRs of the world, where I expect him to be moving up as a young IGL prospect pretty soon. And then Symmetry and Demon are just good shooters. They just fucking frag hard. The team obviously has good synergy because this is, again, the Na'Vi Junior Core just with one other player in LionHeartZ, who I'm sure I'm still pronouncing wrong. But they also still have their Na'Vi Junior coach. So this core of 4 players have been playing together for quite a while now, much more than your average Tier 2 team. So they play with a much tighter system than I think you would expect of a team of this caliber in terms of the rankings. And they really showed it. They had to grit through just about every win they took here. Faze, it went all 24 rounds in the best of 1 before they won on Mirage. Against Pain, it was a 2-0 set in the favor of FUT, but on Mirage, it went into overtime before FUT could get the victory out 16-13. Dust 2, they breezed past 13-6, but that's neither here nor there. I did the games out of order. They obviously lost to Heroic, as we just talked about, but moving past that. And then finally, to make it to the playoffs, they beat Faze again. And I would have gameplay of that series, but once again, I am recording this at 10 o'clock at night, and the demo is still not available on HLTV, which now has me really worried about what's going to happen as far as videos for the playoffs. Because right now, as I'm recording this, the quarterfinals have just started. I'm worried that I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning to no demos available and be waiting all day to start working on the quarterfinals recap. I'm actually really worried about that, but that aside. Anyways, FUT beat Faze again in 3 maps because Life is Pain. 13-11 on Ancient in the favor of FUT. 13-11 on Mirage in favor of Faze. And then 13-10 on Dust 2 in favor of FUT. Life is Pain. Being a Faze fan is the hardest thing in the world. There is no harder life than being a Faze fan. And that's about all my thoughts. And then just briefly to wrap up this video, let's talk about Faze as one of the notable teams who missed out on the playoffs. I'm going to give Faze a pass here, and that may surprise you. You would expect me to rant about Jacob and how bad he was. And he was bad. But let's consider outside circumstances for a second. They couldn't get any playtime in EPL with Jacob, which definitely interrupted the integration of this new system that Kerrigan has said several times that he's running. They're running a whole new playbook, Twist is a secondary caller. The team had to shift roles massively to orient around Twist and Frozen and the missing piece in Rain. So Jacob is stepping in after not being able to play at EPL, and then the team had to travel in less than a day from Stockholm to China, which is an absurdly long flight, extreme amounts of jet lag, and then show up in the server to play FUT without really much sleep or prep. So of course, Faze stumbled through day 1. They recovered a little bit, but frankly, them playing bad at CAC kind of felt like a foregone conclusion based on those circumstances, so I'm just going to look the other way. I'll have more of an accurate judgment of this Faze version once we get another event with some real data to look at. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed this video, you can show me a leave a like, leave a comment down below, subscribe to the channel down right. Help me take us by the end of the year. Thank you to Skins Monkey for sponsoring this video. Go to the top link in the description, go trend their website, let them know I sent you their way. Thank you to Skins Monkey. Thank you to my channel members. You guys know who you are. I'm trying to keep things short today. Follow me on Twitter, LionHeartZ. I'll see you guys soon tomorrow. Peace.